Hello, I'm Cathy O'Sullivan, Editor-in-Chief APAC for CIO. If there's one takeaway from 2023, it's that cyber threats are making their presence felt now more than ever. Indeed, in a recent survey, 88% of security leaders believe their organization is still falling short in addressing cyber risk. We see this trend spilling over into print environments. Despite the rapid wave of digitalization in a bid to drive workplace efficiency and productivity, the majority of businesses remain dependent on print today. And it's this growth in print volumes and hybrid work that is creating security risks. Yet only 19% of IT decision makers say they are completely confident in the security of their print infrastructure. So how do businesses build confidence in their print security while reaping the maximum value of their digitalization efforts? In this video, we look back on 2023's threat landscape, the importance of including the print environment in your overall cybersecurity strategy, and how businesses can prepare themselves for 2024. Joining me to discuss this today is Nick Heaphy, Print Solutions Consultant at Canon. So, Nick, we're only a few weeks away from 2023 coming to a close. How would you describe this year's threat landscape? And are there any learnings you'd like to share?
Gosh, it has been an interesting year. The Mover extortion attack was predicted to net attackers up to $100 million and people paying to not have their data released on the dark web. $100 million. It's a massive amount of money. In New Zealand, the notable attack was the ransomware attack on Auckland Transport that caused an outage on their electronic ticketing system, affecting tens and thousands of commuters. The attackers didn't get their $1 million payday, as Auckland Transport elected not to pay the ransom. Instead, they had to rebuild all of their servers. With this rapid move to cloud-based technology, inevitably, this is where bad actors are going to concentrate their efforts. Big cloud-based vendors like Microsoft, Amazon, and Azure have huge security teams ensuring that their platforms are as secure as possible. But, even then, they're not perfect, and they only have to make a single mistake to let an attacker in. Look at Microsoft. In 2023, a crash dump from one of their cloud engineers was moved from their secure network into their debugging network. That crash log contained code signing keys for Exchange. An attacker managed to compromise the debugging network, download the crash dump, extract the keys, and then compromise the email accounts of numerous high-profile users. Amazing the lengths that a bad actor will go to in order to get into a network. And of course, once they're in, attackers are always wanting to elevate their permissions. So once they compromise a low-level user, it becomes increasingly easy to compromise other internal users. There have been increasing reports of the use of Microsoft Teams to do this. Most users are trained not to open attachments and emails from unknown people. But what about if your compromised colleague's account send you an attachment in Microsoft Teams? What's the chances that you're going to open this? And are you training your users on this attack scenario?
Now, as you say, it's an ever-changing threat landscape, and the vectors that bad actors are using are changing. Print security is often overlooked, yet it comes with a hefty price tag when a print-related data breach occurs. So why do you think organizations should weave print security into their overall cybersecurity strategy?
If you think about printers, there's a couple of security aspects to consider. The obvious one is the content that a printer produces. What's the impact of someone inadvertently picking up someone else's print job from the end of the printer? What if a sales proposal or a client list was printed and left on the printer? Then someone else prints their job and inadvertently picks up both jobs and sends it outside the organization. The reality is that printer manufacturers and print management has mostly eliminated this problem. Now users have to identify themselves at the device in order to release their print job and stand in front of the device while the machine prints. But what about the less obvious aspects? A modern multifunctional device is just a computer that IT don't really manage. It runs an operating system, it's capable of running software, but they're unlikely to be part of your unified endpoint management solution. Do you know if they're running the latest version of their firmware? Do you know if there's any unauthorized applications running on them? And do you know if they have passwords that conform to your password policies? Yeah, you probably think this is pretty low risk. What's the worst that could happen? A hacker sends a print job that uses up all the paper in the printer. But if you think a bit longer about what your multifunctional device can do and the juicy information that can be pulled from it if it was compromised, it can scan to email. It needs a username and a password to access your mail server. Does it have an address book where users put common email addresses? Now an attacker has a list of people working in your organization. Or even worse, can users look up your global address book on the MFD? There's another username and password to access LDAP or AD for that functionality. Can a user scan to a file share? There's another username and password. Does the printer store a job history? What can an attacker glean from the file names of the print jobs? What about all the usernames of people who have printed? So from a simple multifunctional device with a default username and password, an attacker on a network has the potential to obtain a username and password to access your mail server. And imagine how much more effective a phishing attack would be on users if the email was sent from your internal mail server. It can get usernames and passwords to access your LDAP or Active Directory, a username and password to access a file share, and what else can that user access? And of course, a list of users who have printed or scanned using that device. Sound far-fetched? Google Tom Poll, How I Met Your Printer, for an enlightening talk about printer security.
So Nick, how do you foresee 2024's threat landscape taking shape? Are there any particular trends that you're paying attention to?
Oh, if only we had a crystal ball to predict this, it would make life so much easier. While there's always the potential threat of quantum computers making current cryptography obsolete, I think the reality is that you should be more worried about the same old low-skill attacks targeting users with phishing. Spear phishing attacks are likely to get more convincing due to the use of AI to craft the emails. AI can be trained to better imitate the style of company internal emails. If your company does any software development, drum into your development team the importance of securely storing things like API keys and private certificates. Don't commit these to your version control system. Better yet, have your DevOps security people implement tools to automatically check for the inclusion of keys or accidental inclusion of keys. Like in 2023, cloud-based platforms provide a large surface area for attack. If Microsoft, with all their resources, can suffer compromises in Azure, what does that mean for smaller companies who are running software in Azure who don't have a huge InfoSec team? If you're subscribing to any public cloud-based solutions, you need to check with your supplier about the underlying design of their system. Was it designed from the ground up to be running in the public cloud with all the inherent risks that this exposes? Do they undertake pen testing with independent companies? And do they provide the results of these tests? How's the data stored and isolated from other users' data? Where's the data stored? And how does this relate to data sovereignty? The New Zealand Department of Internal Affairs publish a cloud risk assessment discovery tool. So, download this and use it when evaluating any cloud offering.
And finally, Nick, what advice can you share with our audience on ways to future-proof themselves for the coming year?
Don't just concentrate on perimeter defense. Assume that an attacker is already in your network and they're hunting for ways to elevate their permissions and move throughout your network. This is where a security philosophy like zero trust comes in. Isolate each device on your network so that if a breach does occur, the attacker can't use this device as a stepping stone to connect to other devices on the network. Think about traditional print management platforms. Think about a traditional print management platform. Your user's computer needs to talk to a print server, and the print server needs to talk to the printers. You can limit the communication using VLANs and only open certain ports, but to allow users to print and scan, you have to allow access to these services across your network. Inherently, you are trusting the printer. And again, when you consider that a modern printer is really a fully fledged computer in disguise, running an operating system where you're not in control of the updates, is this really something you should trust? Now you don't have to. A modern cloud-based print management platform such as Uniflow Online supports the zero trust security model. Now you don't need to allow your printers to communicate with any of your computers on the network or access any of your servers. All the printer needs to be able to communicate with is the Uniflow online service running in a regional Azure data center. No VLANs, no VPNs, just standard SSL encrypted internet traffic on port 443. The printer can be anywhere, and anyone in your organization can securely cloud print and scan using it. Heck, it doesn't even need to touch a network. You could hang a 5G modem off the back of it. Provided it can access the internet, it'll work. So the security aspect's been addressed, but moving your print management platform to a SaaS model also means you can eliminate all of those on-site print servers, operating system licensing costs, and the IT infrastructure support costs. No more scheduling outages to perform Windows updates or updates to the print management platform. What about the historical print metadata for reporting? No more SQL servers, no more database administration. There's so many hidden costs to any on-premise solution that just disappear with software as a service. Another thing to look at is security information and event management solutions, such as Splunk Wizard or Microsoft Sentinel. In addition to monitoring your network infrastructure, most multifunctional printers these days can output syslogs directly into a SIEM solution. This means you can set up alerts to notify your security manager when anything out of the ordinary happens, such as someone logging into the MFD using administration credentials, or changing settings through the web interface, alerting you to the possibility of malicious activity. Lastly, talk with your current MFD vendor about security. Ask if default passwords are used. Check if they've got security hardening guides for their devices available. See if they have options for implementing Zero Trust on their devices. And if you don't like their answers, maybe it's time to see what other suppliers can offer.
Certainly a lot to dwell on there, and especially the importance of including the print environment in your overall cybersecurity strategy. Nick Heaphy, Professional Services Consultant at Canon, thank you so much for your time today.